Ever imagine a construction site, but it's like eerily quiet, like a well-oiled machine, but instead of gears, it's robots.
And not a hard hat in sight.
Well, that might be the future of construction, at least according to this report we're diving into today. It's from Costain. They're a big UK construction firm.
Yeah, they're all about this thing called KK connected and autonomous plant technology.
Right. CAP. So before we go any further, let's, what is that exactly?
So, in a nutshell, CAP, it's basically all about construction equipment. Your bulldozers, excavators, all that, becoming way smarter. The connected bit means these machines can share data and someone can even control them remotely.
Okay, so like remote-controlled bulldozers.
Exactly. But then there's the autonomous part, which is where it gets really futuristic.
Yeah.
We're talking machines that can do tasks almost entirely on their own, barely any human input. Think self-driving cars, but instead of picking you up from work, they're digging foundations.
Wow, so less about robots, like laying bricks one by one,
Right.
and more about these big machines just getting way more sophisticated.
Exactly. And the crazy thing is, this isn't some distant sci-fi scenario. This report says 20% of construction equipment in the UK is already using some form of CAP.
20%.
Seriously.
You wouldn't think construction would be so quick to jump on the, like, cutting-edge tech bandwagon.
Right. It's surprising.
So what's a good example of CAP actually happening right now, then?
Well, one area that's already seeing a huge impact is road construction. Those giant compactor things they use to make the road nice and smooth?
Yeah.
So with this intelligent compaction technology, those things are using sensors to analyze the soil, check the blueprint, all in real time. They can adjust how much they compact in each spot to make sure the road is perfectly even, and they do it all in fewer passes.
So instead of just going back and forth mindlessly,
Right.
they know exactly where to put the pressure down. That's wild.
And what's really cool is for you driving down the road, that means smoother roads, fewer potholes, less need for repairs later on.
It's like a win-win.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's roads. What else? Where else is this connected tech making waves?
Well, another great example is telematics. It's basically like a fitness tracker, but for a whole fleet of construction vehicles. They track literally everything: location, fuel usage, engine performance, even how the operator's driving.
Wait, they're tracking how well people drive these massive machines.
Yeah. It gives you all this data, Then you can see where things are inefficient and find ways to improve the whole operation.
So it's not just about the machines themselves. It's about using data to make the entire process smarter.
Exactly. Working smarter, not harder.
I like it. But I'm curious, is the UK, leading the pack here? Or are there other industries, maybe even globally, that are even further ahead with this kind of tech?
That's a great question. So while the UK is definitely making progress, there are definitely other fields out there that are way ahead of the game when it comes to this kind of technology. Mining, for example. They've been using autonomous trucks for years now. We're talking massive vehicles being controlled by operators sitting miles away.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, if you're doing something on such a huge scale and it's potentially dangerous, might as well hand it over to the robots, right?
Yeah.
But how does all that translate back to something like, building a house?
Well, what we're seeing in places like mining, ports, even agriculture, think drones for farming,
Yeah.
it's all showing that this technology actually works. It's proving that it can make things safer, way more efficient, and save tons of money.
So it's like a proof of concept happening in these other industries.
Exactly. And all those advancements, they trickle down. They influence how CKP is developed and adopted in construction.
So it's bigger than just robots on building sites. It's part of this whole automation wave that's changing how we do things across the board.
Absolutely. And that brings us to a crucial point the report emphasizes: the economic impact of all this.
Oh, absolutely. This report, it actually predicts the UK CTAP market could be worth a whopping $15.6 billion by 2050.
Whoa, 15.6 billion. That's a massive jump from the, 3.4 billion it is now?
Right. It's huge. It shows the huge economic potential this technology has.
Okay, but those are some big numbers. What do they actually mean for, regular people? How does that translate into something we'd actually notice?
Well, it's not just about construction companies making more money. This kind of growth means more jobs, and potentially even higher paying jobs at that, although it might require people to learn some new skills. Imagine, instead of operating a digger, you're writing the code that tells it what to do.
So we're talking about a shift in the types of jobs in construction towards more tech-focused roles. Exactly. And think about this. With things being more efficient, projects get finished faster, right? So that means roads, hospitals, schools, all that essential infrastructure gets built quicker. Less disruption for everyone, lower labor costs, and our tax money is being used more effectively.
Faster, cheaper, more efficient projects. Sounds like a pretty sweet deal to me.
Right. And we can't forget about safety. That's a huge one. If we can automate the most dangerous jobs on a construction site, that means fewer accidents, fewer people getting hurt, even saving lives.
Now that's a future worth getting excited about. But I mean, no rose without thorns, right? Didn't this report also mention some challenges, some roadblocks on the way to this CAP utopia?
It did. Cost is a big one, for sure. Equipping all these machines with fancy sensors and software, it's not cheap. It's a big investment, especially for smaller construction companies. It might be tough to swallow.
Yeah, I can see that. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, as they say, or,
Yeah.
upgrade it with millions of dollars worth of tech.
Exactly. And then there's the whole skills gap thing. If we're going to have this tech-driven industry, we need people who know how to use it. We need skilled operators, programmers, data analysts. Making sure the workforce has those skills, that's going to be crucial.
Right, so it's not just about the tech itself. It's about making sure people are trained and ready to use it.
Exactly. And another thing, the report actually points to Norway as an example. You see, in Norway, the government made it mandatory for construction projects to use 3D modeling. And guess what? That really sped up CIP adoption.
Interesting. So sometimes a little nudge from the government can actually be a good thing, huh? What happened in Norway after they made that change?
Well, they've got almost total CIP adoption now, and they've seen some really impressive cost savings and projects getting finished way ahead of schedule.
Wow, that's pretty compelling.
Right.
But are there any examples of KAP actually being used successfully here in the UK, or are we lagging behind?
Oh, we've got some success stories too. The report actually highlights the HS2 high-speed rail project. They did some trials with that intelligent compaction we talked about earlier.
Oh yeah, the smart road rollers.
Exactly. And the results were really positive. They finished quicker, used way less fuel, and made fewer mistakes.
So it's not just theory, it's actually making a difference in the real world. That's great to hear. But, all this talk about robots and automation, it made me think, what about the human side of things? Are we all just going to be out of a job when the robots take over the construction site? I mean, it's the age-old question, right? Are the robots going to take our jobs?
Right. It's a valid concern, for sure. But this report, it actually frames it a little differently. Instead of robots versus humans, it's more about humans and machines working together.
Oh, interesting. So more like collaboration than competition.
Exactly. Think about it. What if you had robots doing all the really tough, dangerous, repetitive stuff on a construction site? The heavy lifting, literally.
Okay, I can see where you're going with this.
And then you free up the human workers to focus on things that require, that human touch, creativity, problem solving, overseeing the whole thing.
So jobs wouldn't disappear. They'd just evolve, become more specialized.
Exactly. It could even mean more skilled trades. You'd need people who can program the robots, analyze all that data coming in, make sure everything's running smoothly,
So instead of just brawn, it becomes more about brains.
and tech skills,
Hmm.
which is great for younger generations, right? Makes construction a more appealing career path.
That's a good point. It's not just about building buildings, it's about building the workforce of the future, too. This has been fascinating. From self-driving bulldozers to robots and humans teaming up, it seems like CAP is poised to completely transform the construction industry. Any final thoughts for our listeners at home before we wrap things up?
I'd say the future of construction, it's not set in stone. It's being built right now by the choices we make, the technology we decide to use. So next time you see a construction site, take a minute to think, what if that was being built smarter, safer, more efficiently? What if that was CAP in action?
A future where robots and humans work together to create a better world. Now that's something worth building towards. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the world of CAP. Until next time.